Day 77 of the Atlantic hurricane season. It's day 95 in the Eastern Pacific, and that's where we have a few systems active at the moment in both basins, as a matter of fact. 3 invests in the Central Pacific, 2 of them likely to form in the next 24 to 48 hours. And we also have 92L, which is currently located over the Yucatan Peninsula, and Tropical Storm Erin, which formed in the past 24 hours near the Cape Verde Islands, moving out to sea now into the Central Pacific as a minimal tropical storm at this time. In the Western Pacific as well, we have what's left of Utor, currently inland over China, and we currently have the 2 invest 98W, which is located to the southeast of Taiwan, and 99W, which is further out to sea, quite far to the southeast of the Japanese islands at this time. 90C and 91C likely to form, 80% chance on 90C, 60% chance on 91C. For Invest 92L in the Atlantic over the Yucatan Peninsula, a 50% chance just before this video. It might have changed slightly, but around 50% over the next 24 hours. And Erin, which is currently a tropical storm moving away from the Cape Verde Islands as we speak. The Indian Ocean fairly quiet at this time. You can see not too much going on here. What's left of 90S, which was around 2 days ago, but it's fairly quiet as it is at this time of year. We'll probably see a bit more activity in this part of the world in September, October or later. These are the current sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, the eastern half of the Pacific. You can see to the south of Hawaii, temperatures certainly warm enough, 26 to 28 degrees generally where those invests are at the moment. Towards the eastern half of the Pacific, very warm waters off the Mexican coastline as usual, around 30 degrees Celsius generally along the coast. Here in the Atlantic, we have the Gulf of Mexico, very warm waters here, especially in the western half where we have 30-degree temperatures or so, especially towards the north as well. Out at sea, around 26 to 28 degrees generally at the minimum, so certainly good enough conditions for Erin at the moment, and for 92L certainly conducive in terms of sea surface temperatures over the next few days. Looking in the Western Pacific, east of the Philippines, we have warm waters around 30 degrees generally, extending up to Japan, and to the west in the South China Sea, around 28 degrees temperatures, 28 degrees Celsius in terms of sea surface temperatures. Certainly warm enough for any tropical systems currently in that area, though there aren't any at the moment. Tropical Storm Erin currently with winds of 40 miles per hour, moving away from the Cape Verde Islands, which it passed close to not very long ago. Pressures 1006 millibars, positions 14.6 degrees north, 27 degrees west, and is expected to move towards the west-northwest over the next 3 or 4 days as a tropical storm, possibly peaking as a strong tropical storm, 60, maybe 70 miles per hour. Certainly no stronger than that, and it may be quite a bit weaker than that as it comes to it. But moving out to sea generally, and will probably not affect land. It might move north of that track, the forecast there. Invest 92L currently over land in the Yucatan Peninsula, winds 30 miles per hour, pressures 1010 millibars, and is expected to move towards the west-northwest generally, becoming a tropical depression at some point, and then most models predict a tropical storm forming as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. 1 or 2 predict it to become a hurricane as well out in the Gulf of Mexico, though a few others take it into land before it manages to do that. But it's still fairly uncertain as to where exactly it will go. It could be Mexico, it could be as far east as Louisiana at this point. Invest 90C currently with winds of 35 miles per hour, pressures 1007 millibars, positions 12.3 degrees north, 160.6 degrees west, which puts it south-southwest of Hawaii. Expected to move towards the west-northwest over the next few days, probably peaking as a weak tropical storm before advancing towards the international dateline, and then moving into the western Pacific probably as a remnant low in about 5 days' time. So let's take a look at the current shear then, the wind shear. This is the Atlantic first of all. You can see quite calm shear conditions ahead of Erin, only around 10 to 20 knots, which is low to moderate and shouldn't be too debilitating for Erin as it moves towards the west-northwest, at least in wind shear. Towards the Gulf of Mexico, low shear levels in the western part of the Gulf of Mexico as well, which could help 92L develop over there. Looking at the Pacific here, you can see Hawaii towards the centre left of the image, and towards the southwest of that you can see the 2 invests which are likely to develop, currently surrounded by quite high levels of shear, especially to the north, which could inhibit any development that occurs, limit the development that occurs over the next few days. Looking at the water vapour imagery in the Atlantic, you can see some dry air conditions towards the northeast of the Lesser Antilles out in the open ocean, which could inhibit development for Erin in particular, but looking towards the Gulf of Mexico, more moist conditions occurring there at the moment. Looking at the Central Pacific, you can see Dryag as well, where the high shear is towards the north of these two invests, 90C and 91C. 90C just south of Hawaii, 91C to the west-southwest of that storm, but not looking too bad for those storms over the next few days. Here's the Gulf of Mexico then. You can see over the past 24 hours how 92L has been coming along in the Caribbean, moving into the Yucatan Peninsula. Most of the storms associated with the system is still out at sea over the Caribbean, though some have moved over the Yucatan Peninsula now. So let's take a look at Tropical Storm Erin now, currently moving towards the west-northwest. Not the strongest of systems at the moment. You can see a bit of a storm towards the southwest of the system, the circulation itself. The circulation is coming a little bit quieter at this point, waning a little bit, but it may resurge in the next few hours. We'll have to see how that one goes. I think Erin will strengthen over the next few days. It's probably very short term. Invest 90C is starting to look a bit more like a storm at the moment as well, gradually moving towards the west, fairly slowly at this point, and that's likely to continue as it moves towards the west-northwest. Certainly a strong core of the system, and will probably have tropical depression status, especially if it keeps on as it is doing at the moment in the next few hours. And 91C is not doing too badly either. 60% chance on this one at the moment, according to the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, moving as well towards the west at the moment, fairly slowly. Not too organised at this point. You can see a few spiral bandings trying to form at the moment, but the core of the storm remains fairly strong at this point, and a tropical depression is certainly on the cards for this one too. Looking at the model runs then, the CMC model first of all has quite a few systems forming. First of all, Erin moving through the central Atlantic, 92L forming in the Gulf of Mexico, making landfall in Florida as a matter of fact, and another storm forming near the Leeward Islands and then moving towards the west-northwest. And a storm forming in the Eastern Pacific as well on that one as well. The ECMWF has Erin moving out to sea towards the west-northwest, northwest as a matter of fact, and then west-northwest, and a storm forming in the Eastern Pacific as well, becoming a hurricane and then moving through the Baja California Peninsula. That's certainly one to watch as well. The GFS model takes Erin towards the west-northwest, and another system forming behind that, an African wave. As far as 92L is concerned, a weak system moving into the Gulf Coast, probably in Louisiana, as a weak tropical storm at best, or at worst as you may say. And the NavGam model also has 92L forming in the Caribbean, in the Gulf of Mexico, and then making landfall in Louisiana or Mississippi, or maybe even both as a matter of fact, and a new system forming near the Cape Verde Islands again. The GFDL model has a weak system moving through the southern Gulf of Mexico, becoming a tropical storm for a very short time before making landfall in Mexico. Looks like a very small storm, but that is 92L. That's what the GFDL predicts for that one. The HWRF is fairly intriguing as well. Erin moving out to sea being a short-lived storm. Another system moving behind that, forming quite far south, and then moving northwest into the Cape Verde Islands as a probable tropical storm, which is certainly an interesting one to look out for. So this is the intensity comparisons by the models. You can see for 92L intensifying into a tropical storm. For most of the models say that, somewhere along its path in about 2 or 3 days time as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. But as I said earlier in the bulletin, models are certainly fairly split on where it will make landfall. Some say as far south as Mexico, south of the Texas border, whilst others say as far east as the very far western tip of Florida, the Florida Panhandle that is. Looking at the shear comparisons, you can see that it's fairly moderate at this point and may decrease as it moves to the Gulf of Mexico, which will certainly give it a good start, but then will increase again as time goes on. Sea surface temperatures are certainly not an issue, 28, 29 degrees, up to 30 degrees as it moves towards the north, and the relative humidity is fairly high at the moment, around 70%, but that is decreasing over the next few days, which will probably cause a bit more unfavourable conditions, especially towards when it moves towards the northern Gulf of Mexico. Looking at the CMC model for the Western Pacific, then you can see a new typhoon forming, which is 98W, I believe, or it could be 99W, or actually both of them merging according to the CMC model, moving through the Japanese islands and then making landfall in China, not too far from Shanghai, probably moving directly over as a matter of fact. The GFS model has the typhoon forming near the Ryukyu Islands in Japan and then moving it westward towards the northern tip of Taiwan before accelerating towards the northwest and then affecting mainland Japan as a probable tropical storm as it moves towards the northwest there at the end of that loop, the northeast rather, and another system forming behind that as well towards its southeast. Looking at the overall predicted season scores then for August the 16th, Hockeyman 10 Minecraft takes first place with 60 points, joint with William in second place with 60 points as well. MH Raphael and Woollyback82 joint third at the moment with 59 points. But those are sorted by prediction time, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of joint first and joint third because of the earlier predictions get higher positions. You can submit your own storm totals at the website force13.com/interactive. Just click the 2013 predicted season button and submit your totals. So what happened on this day then on August the 16th? In 1971, Beth made landfall in Nova Scotia as a Category 1 hurricane, resulting in 1 fatalities and $5.1 million in damages. In 1984, Tropical Storm Kelly formed in the Eastern Pacific. Also that year, Tropical Storm Kenna formed in the Eastern Pacific as well. In 1986, Tropical Storm Howard formed in the Eastern Pacific too. You can see Tropical Storm Kenna forming there in 1984, that one was pictured. In 1988, Tropical Storm John formed in the Eastern Pacific. In 1991, Tropical Storm Bob formed near the Bahamas, there it is pictured as it formed. In 1992, the next year, Tropical Storm Andrew formed in the Central Atlantic. Quite a tame system as it was there, moving through the Central Atlantic. And in 1993, Tropical Depression Cindy made landfall in the Dominican Republic, resulting in 2 fatalities over there. In 1994, Tropical Storm Beryl made landfall in Florida, resulting in 1 fatality and $73 million in damages. In 1997, Tropical Storm Yule formed in the Western Pacific. And in 2003, Erica made landfall in Mexico as a Category 1 hurricane, causing 2 fatalities and $10,000 in damages. There it is pictured, making landfall in Mexico, northern Mexico I believe it made landfall. It moved westward throughout the Gulf of Mexico before intensifying into a hurricane and made landfall. In 2007, Tropical Storm Erin made landfall in Texas, another one, 16 fatalities and $67 million of damages. In 2009, Tropical Storm Claudette formed in the Atlantic and Anna dissipated on the same day. In 2011, Tropical Storm Greg formed in the Eastern Pacific and Franklin turned post-tropical in the Atlantic on that day as well. And in 2012, last year, Tropical Storm Hector dissipated in the Eastern Pacific. And don't forget, you can track any storm that forms, or indeed storms that are active, at the website force13.com/stormtracking.html. That's the main page for the storm tracking information, where you can see the overview map where all storms and invests as well are located on the map, with the tables at the top and bottom which show you where they are, their intensities, and any warnings that are currently in effect as well. There aren't any warnings in effect anywhere at the moment, though that may change as time goes on. You can also go in depth basin by basin to see the tracking maps and the projected tracks, of course, as it gets updated, which it is updated throughout the day usually whenever I'm at the computer in between videos. So that's the place to go during tomorrow before the next bulletin. You can also visit us on our social pages, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter, whichever one you're on. Just search Force13, you should find us fairly easily enough. And please do show your support by doing the usual liking, commenting, favouriting, subscribing, or following, or whatever. I might have already said that one. Whatever you wish. Please do comment if you have any comments for the video, for the bulletin, or indeed by private message if you wish to do it in private communications. I'm very much open to those. Very much appreciate positive comments, or indeed constructive criticism, as long as it is that constructive. 101 days until Hurricane Week 2013 by Force 13. Visit the Force 13 site for more information about that. Force13.com/HW 2013 is the page for that, and we're looking for collaborators as well and contributions for that feature. So if you feel you could do any of that, then please do get in touch. The email address is on that page. You can also visit the forum discussion forum on the website force13.com/forum, and there you can discuss any current storms that are active, and indeed any storms that are not active if you wish, any storms of the past. But for the time being, the next bulletin will be coming at around midnight UTC on Saturday morning. That's the 17th of August 2013. But until then, that's all for now.